Just checking it's still, yeah, oh, it's not. Good afternoon, everybody. Last section before lunch, and there's a lot of commercial and legal people in the room, which makes me incredibly nervous. So I decided to bring a friend, which is the commercial director for the Smart Motorway programme, Stephen. I was pleased to be invited to attend today because I think the commercial and the contract structure, is critical, has a huge impact on performance. And we've already seen some examples today of the types of contracts we've used on the Smart Motorways programme. It's quite unique in many ways, I think, in the fact that it's been around for a number of years. It is a bit of a shame to see mostly commercial people in the room and not a few more project managers, I think. It would be nice to see a few more taking perhaps a bit more interest in the contract structure as to help and look at how it can facilitate results. So a quick run through about the Smart Motorway. As I said, there's a long history. M42 is the first one over 10 years ago in 2006. And the reason we do them is not just because we like building things, but it is because it gives that extra capacity over and above just building the extra lane for 60% of the cost and is at least as safe as the existing motorways, as all the evidence shows. And on the M25, the safety statistics there have demonstrated quite an increase in safety performance. We now have a consistent product in all lane running, and we're constantly looking to improve customer performance, and we're looking at increasing the number of refuges that you see up there and starting to paint them orange so that people can see them as they drive past. They are emergency areas, they're not somewhere just to take a break. So that's been part of the argument and it's part of the challenges that we actually have on the programme. There is an ongoing strategy that's been in place for quite a while now to build smart motorways across the whole spine of the country, to build the network and provide that constant experience for customers. Has a huge increase in capacity, as I said, for much reduced cost, and is critical to the economic benefits for the country. When you look at the BCR on our projects, they're always sort of 2.5, and the sorts of BCRs that other sectors aspire to. So the message here is that Highways England is committed to smart motorways. We've just looked at RIS2. We're looking at RIS2 and RIS3 going forward and our contract mechanisms that we utilise going forward. They provide a good experience. In actual fact, even during the roadworks at times, you may find this hard to believe, but it does actually often increase the reliability and speed through those sections of the roadworks because of the cameras and because of driver behaviour. So we're all about improved journey time reliability at almost half the cost of a traditional widening. A quick overview of the programme. Talked about RIS2, RIS1. The red dotted line is the Smart Motorway investment. So I joined a couple of years ago. It's not that long ago that the highways, it was the bulk of the Highways England programme. We now have 4 programmes: Regional Investment Programme, National Investment Programme, and the Complex Infrastructure Programme. It was set up as a programme to deliver benefits across the country of scale and consistent and production environment. And we've delivered an awful lot as a result of that. And the investment in smart motorways has gone up from around 400 million at the start of RIS1 to about 450 last year, 675 this year, and about 950 million next year. So this is a huge impact and critical to the infrastructure. So I just want to touch a little bit onto our contract journey, and I'm very aware that there's people in this room who know a lot more about this than I do in terms of some of the involvement. But I think the industry's got a long history of looking at the issues, recognising them, but actually the challenge is actually how to address them. And we've struggled on that. I think the contracts NEC goes a long way to doing that. There was a question, actually on the last speaker was talking about actually how do we procure under public sector regs, and some of that has been some of the challenges. You got the Simon report back in 1944, talked about the inefficient preparation of designs, extensive variations, lowest standard price wins, and relationships between client, contractor, and down the supply chain to the subcontractor. not a lot's changed it sometimes, it feels, doesn't it? Not all these years. I mean, the Banwell report 63 said similar, rush to site, lump sums. Wood report 75, closer to Latham, looking at constructing the team. And of course, now we've got Project 13, which, you know, has got a lot of similar themes in it. Governance, organisation, integration. And we're looking at our contract journey and how we can address some of these as we move forward. And we've got a very good base in Smart Motorways to do that. The HA was an early adopter of collaboration and NEC. And from my personal point of view, it's one of the attractions of joining. You know, when you look back at the beginning of managed motorways, that was under ECI. But then we had the Nichols report, which was started challenging our capability as a client to manage that. I think we've addressed that in some of the commercial challenges. And some of the challenges around ECI that were touched on a little earlier. In 2015, we let CDF. I think CDF is a good contract, actually, when you look at it. But we have had some challenges. As I said, we've continued to deliver under it, but there's certainly been challenges along the way, as you'd expect with any new contract. Tranche 1 was pretty transactional, actually. I was quite surprised. I picked up the tail end of that. The contracts had already been let. So we'd let a number of contracts, but we'd done a secondary tendering. So we pushed ourselves into a position where fundamentally they were underpriced at that point and probably not addressing risk. That impacted behaviours. So we started looking at contracts. We let a collaborative delivery framework, but the price gets in the way. And again, we come into a position where we don't want suppliers to underbid, but how do we address it? It's the constant challenge for us in the public sector, and as clients who want to be good clients, it's a constant challenge. So, you know, we've made a number of changes as we've moved through the contract and we've moved through RIS1 with the way that we've set up the contracts. Somebody touched on something again earlier, so tranches 2 and 3 were let. They've got a strategic risk event clause, which means we've got an incentive mechanism that doesn't always change the completion date. Initially, when I saw that, I thought it was really quite unreasonable. Actually getting into it, we pay an awful lot of money up front for ECI, and we're looking for people. We let the contracts with an ECI stage and with a notice to proceed. The big challenge has been making sure that ECI works and drives down the outturn cost and works to our budget. And we've moved forward. We've moved to tranches 4 and 5 and price set. And as we've gone forward, we've now started looking at our next procurement route, which we've already said will be an alliance. So over the years, we've striven to learn to become a more capable client. And the big message is alongside that, we've continued to deliver and continued to improve alongside the existing contract. I touched on those reports which were through the last century, but I'm going to take us back to the previous century, actually, which is one of my favourite quotes here from John Ruskin. We aren't a client that is looking to pay too little, but it's often difficult with the procurement mechanisms we've got to actually get the right price when the industry is so used to bidding low and thinks that's the way to win work, alongside, of course, public sector procurement regs and all the challenges that go with that. It's also a challenge when we look at then increasing margins through change control, through some of the areas that Steve will look at in a bit more detail, of some of the, John touched on it earlier actually, some of the game playing that goes on at that stage and really starts to impact on the collaborative behaviour and how we manage the outturn against the overall budget. So with that, I'm going to hand over to the brains of the operation, who's Steve Groves, our Commercial Director.
Okay, thanks, Shaun. Is anybody else looking as tired as I am from last night's big game? Anybody see it? Yeah, I actually got tickets for the game last night, actually. It was absolutely fantastic. A friend offered me the tickets. I should stand up. Hopefully this will work. Which I was really, really excited about. And then the tickets arrived. And it was Wasps versus Mavericks netball game. The daughters are very pleased, I have to say. Anyway, just going on to the actual slides of the presentation. Yeah, I'm Steve Groves, the Programme Commercial Director for Smart Motorways for Highways England. I'm doing it for about 2 years. Fantastic challenge, big programme, really exciting place to be. And what I'm going to try and cover really is some of the challenges that we've faced with the arrangements, the NEC arrangements that we have. Now, those who, I guess quite a few people have worked with highways in the room. Any hands, anybody who's been involved in highways? Yeah, so I think it's true to say the Highways Agency and Highways England as we are now have been a true adopter and really believed in the principles of NEC. I think I worked on one back in the mid-90s actually on the A23 just south of here, so we've been using it for some time. And one of the things we've been grappling around recently is, well, probably you can put it around Clause 10. It's been spoken about quite a bit this morning, Clause 10. Mutual trust and cooperation. And who thinks we've actually truly got there in terms of the meaning of that term? Can't see many hands. I'm sure just a bit shy, maybe. But yeah, we've been really grappling around it. And why haven't we got there? It's been there pretty much since the start of the NEC, I believe. Is that right? John, you'll know. You're the expert, the professor.
It was only introduced after Latham.
Only after Latham. Yeah. So you think we would have nailed it by now. So we've been looking into why do we think perhaps we haven't got there. And, you know, I've got a commercial background, so it's surely not us commercially, is it? The reason why we're not there? I wouldn't think so. But a few people said actually there is a bit of a conflict between the commercial model, the commercial tensions, and actually gaining that true mutual trust and cooperation. Yeah, we've got a big programme here in Smart Motorways, so we've got a real opportunity with £3 billion worth of work. We've got over 20 schemes. They range roughly around 100 million to say 450 million in size, so pretty substantial programme, pretty substantial works. We can hopefully try and work with everybody to try and nail this once and for all and get this working. Some of the barriers that probably come into place that we face, that we've experienced, observations I've had. I'll start off with project management. Shaun said he wanted more project managers in the room, which would be fantastic. But one of the things that us commercial people, we always blame the project manager actually for some reason, done it in a no blame culture, but that's what we do. But I think the reality is the NEC contract it's written in simple language, but it's pretty complex and requires a lot of commitment to actually make it work. I think maybe there's a few people that would agree with that. And do we actually always provide the right armoury and the right support to our project managers, the poor project manager, to actually make this work for us? Because if we do, I think we're all in a better place no matter where we sit in that supply chain. So we've really got to invest in that project management. I think it was it John earlier used the term gaming. We don't do any gaming, do we? Any contractors in the room? You don't game any of the figures, do you? I wouldn't think so either. But we do often come into a bit of a conflict between defined cost and, contractors are in to make a margin. We should reward that. We should look for it because that's the way they can be successful. And through perhaps the traditional tendering, competitive tendering, perhaps there's been a bit of a conflict there. And we've ended up in situations where to win a job, you bid one thing, you want to get a different return. You bid at 2%, you need to get 6% return. So you look for other opportunities in the contract to recover that margin. But is that really mutual trust and cooperation? Should we be a lot more open at the start on what we're actually aiming to achieve, and then perhaps we can all work together to make it happen? I touched on the contract administration. It is quite onerous, but we've got a commitment to each other to actually, if we commit to the start, that's the way we're going to work together, and we should hold ourselves to that commitment and put it out when we're not actually doing the contract administration, as it says, and support each other to make it happen. You know, we an observation from our programme, I don't know if it's familiar with others, when you have a schedule submitted on a monthly basis, clause 32, how many times does that actually get accepted? You know, how many of us have actually been on projects where probably the first accepted programme is the one at the end when it's built? Surely not. No, I didn't think so. It's just us, I think, that one. You know, how realistic is it in terms of risk, in terms of the programme? Flick on to the next slide. I think what we're trying to create is that true alignment. The boat there, you know, anybody who's into rowing, you've got to row together. You've got to row in the same direction. The person that steers it doesn't have to actually be very big if that's happening. And you can go in the right direction and you can achieve your goals. And I think, John, you were touching on it earlier about making that positive, making those goals clear so we can all work together to try and achieve them. And if we get true alignment, that should be mutual between us. We should all win as a result. And if it's positive, all the better. I think, you know, we've used an analogy, if I go and employ somebody, you know, I agree a base salary, so they know what they're going to get paid to pay the mortgage because we've agreed that up front. And if we want them to outperform, we generally introduce bonuses, don't we, for outperformance. So why are our contracts any different? And that's part of the journey that we're going on at the minute. I've touched on the leadership vision, creating that mutual vision. You know, client capabilities. You know, we're not going to put our hand up and say we're perfect at all this. I don't think anybody would. But we need to try and support each other to try and administer these contracts the way that we've committed. We are tied to public procurement rules. There are restrictions on what we can do, but we will test those as we go. The business models. You know, our objectives as a business, Highways England, we're quite clear. They're not purely about price. It obviously is important. Price is about achieving the budgets that we set ourselves, and we agree ultimately with the taxpayers is good value for schemes. We've got other objectives. You know, safety is all of our objective. Nobody comes to work to go home injured, and nor should they. So it's a key objective to us and our road users, the safety of our road users as well, creating the environment for them. Our customers, our road users, they're going to get disrupted. Nobody likes roadworks, do they? But it's key to our business to make sure we minimise the impact on them, minimise that disruption they experience and what they have to put up with, and they can see the vision of what's coming afterwards. But on delivery, which I guess most people in the room are more interested in delivery, we agree budgets. We agree taxpayers want efficiency. They want value. The supply chain want margins. Sometimes they conflict with each other, and we accept that. What we've got to try and do is get them aligned, so both of them mutually sit with each other. I think from what I've heard today on the NEC 4 contract, it goes a long way to achieve that. It perhaps does tackle some of that, I don't like to use the term, John, but that gaming that you mentioned. And I think, although I understand you like it, I think if we really want that mutual cooperation, clause 10, I think we just need to be open about it. And know where our margins are coming from and accept that everybody needs to earn one. We need to get it efficiently. Suppliers need to return their margin. The future of the industry, we're going towards more digitally enabled design. Computers are going to be taking over a lot of it, a lot of off-site manufacture, a lot of new building techniques. We want to get that innovation from that tier 2 supply chain through. We want to create the environment so it can be invested into on that journey towards efficiency. But that doesn't need to come at the detriment of people's margins. Perhaps something for the option C contract, if margins earned through fee, on the volume, does that actually achieve the client's objective of efficiency? So we've got to tackle that and address that issue to make sure the two work together in that new world of digitally enabled design. Just looking at the time, in terms of our journey, this slide here sort of explains what Shaun touched on earlier in terms of the since Highways England's been in existence, we have road investment cycles now, 5-year cycles similar to regulated industries, although we agree with ours with the monitor and the DFT. We're 2/3 of the way through the first one, the RIS1 as we refer to it, and we've used the collaborative delivery framework based upon NEC 3. There may be some lessons to learn from NEC 4 that we could consider on those projects, because they've still got some time to go until they've actually been completed. It's been successful, it's met the efficiency, in fact we've exceeded it, so thank you to everybody for that journey. Although you'll see by the arrow where we're heading, we want to get to that true sort of enterprise, high performing position in the future, perhaps through the journey through RIS2 2020 25 through into 25 to 30. That's our aim. I think the NEC can help us on that journey. We will build on what we've got. We're not reinventing the contract, and I think the contract's evolving with us in terms of what I've seen today. Shaun touched on alliancing and where that could take us perhaps on that journey as well for Smart Motorways. I think just to leave I've banged the drum enough really about the big match in netball last night, but going back to the key theme, it's getting that true alignment, getting a real true mutual commercial model between us. If we can achieve that, if we can be open, I think we can all achieve our objectives and we can all get paid our bonus, which is great. Thank you.